Welcome everybody to the session called Digital Cooperation Process Analysis from Your Lessons. My name is Pajaro Velasquez. I'm going to be today your on-site moderator in this panel. We are going to have today 4 speakers. The first of them is Ethan Mudavanhu. Ethan is a regulatory compliance and market intelligence consultant as a partnership at global publicity field from regulatory issues surrounding digital infrastructure, satellite communications, data policies, and the digital economy. Second will be Meri Baghdasaryan. Meri Baghdasaryan is a human rights lawyer from Armenia focusing on digital rights issues at the intersection of law and technology. She recently received a LM degree from the University of Pennsylvania Law School with a concentration in intellectual property and technology law. Currently, she is a legal fellow at Electronic Frontier Foundation. Eileen Cejas. Eileen Cejas is a criminal lawyer from the University of Buenos Aires in Argentina. Currently, she is the Regional Engagement Director, Latin America and the Caribbean from the Youth Observatory, and the Steering Committee member from the Youth Coalition on Internet Governance. Her professional background comprises criminal law and the interest of including feminist perspective to law, since law is still following the patriarchal mindsets that is affecting society. She has been involved in different activities on internet governance, such as Youth for Digital Sustainability program, a working group in internet social cohesion, organizing the mentorship phase of the Aazore ambassadorship. And for the second year, and she is the coordinator of the Inclusive Internet Governance Ecosystem and Digital Cooperation in the project Youth Summit. Finally, Mubashir Sargana. He's a result driver professional who has 7 years experience in the field of cybersecurity, and he is the cybersecurity advisor to APM of the government in Islamabad. He's also one of the founders of the Asia Pacific School on Internet Governance, Pakistan School on Internet Governance, and Internet Governance Forum of Pakistan. He has been managing secretary of Asia Pacific Special Interest Group and Pakistan Special Interest Group, and also worked as a coordinator of IGF Pakistan. He's currently volunteer and member steering committee for Pakistan C and member of Asia Pacific Regional IGF. Presenting a moderator online who will be assuming today he's Fred Kwadwo Aazore. He's an experienced software developer with a particular interest in Python, Django, AWS, even through in Excel, in C# and Spine and React. He has a background in computer science, hold a bachelor degree from Kwadwo University of Science and Technology in Ghana. He's currently one of the Aazore ambassadors 2021. Now let's jump to the first segment of this conversation, where we will be discussing the 4 digital cooperation model. In order to where we're heading, fairly we're going to hear Eileen Cejas, that she will be talking to us about the IGF Plus model. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Juan. I am Eileen Cejas from Argentina, and I will bring to you some reflections we have been gathering from the IGF Plus model, so we can discuss later on Miro. The IGF Plus model, as you know, will have 4 parts mainly: the advisory board, the cooperation accelerator, the policy incubator, the observatory, and help desk. Graphic that it's on the slide, hope you can help me with that, is missing the leadership panel because, as you know, this is something very recent. So about that, I can share some reflections that appear on the Diplo website. and I will also add some of my own. So regarding this leadership panel that we heard about it a couple of weeks, so some advantages that we can find is that it could increase the relevance of the IGF, because as you know, historically, it had a very good coverage on news and everything, but as the years have been passing by, maybe the media is not reflecting as much as it would need it about the discussion that are happening in this forum. So in that way, this leadership panel, it adheres to the core values of the UN. It could definitely be as a salesperson, as it's defined on the Diplo website for the IGF, so more people can join and be part of this forum. Other aspect that would be positive is that it could amplify the IGF messages and the expertise. As you know, at each IGF, there is a certain amount of messages, not only from the main sessions, but from high level and parliamentarian track. So in that way, it also could bring these messages through a wider community. Also, other advantage that we can find from this leadership panel is that it could help to connect this body to the UN system and other communities that are doing several important things at the UN, for example, UNESA. So in that way, we can connect both worlds, if we can say in that way. Also, the other advantage would be to increase the level of inclusion within the leadership panel, because it would comprise several stakeholders from all the sectors. In that way, it could bring these missing actors into the IGF ecosystem. And the last advantage, it would be reducing the forum shopping. That means that, as you know, at the beginning, well, we had WSIS, and then the IGF appears. But the thing is that then we saw this increasing and a very alarming level of a lot of events and forums. So it's very difficult to concentrate on the policy making in one place. This leadership panel, what can we do is to map about all the governance processes and bring this transparency into the field. However, we also see some disadvantages. For example, is that the leadership panel will be only one aspect of the IGF Plus. So as I was saying, there are other parts of the IGF Plus model that we are expecting for updates. For example, the policy incubator, that maybe this leadership panel could work on creating some policies, not only gathering these recommendations. So that's one of the disadvantages. The other part is that it's not clear yet how this the leadership panel will contribute to the process towards the development of the digital compact that is expected to be adopted in 2023. As you might note, the IGF and the digital compact are mentioned on the common agenda. So this is something that we are also expecting to see how the situation will develop. There is also other disadvantage in a way that we need more clarity on this drafting of policies as how it is structured right now and the terms of reference of the IGF leadership panel. And also, so we can ensure that these outcomes from this group will be inclusive. As I was saying, but it could be an advantage if it's used on a good way, but otherwise it would be not so inclusive. So I hope I'm good with my time. So I want to share with you that, for example, at both the multi-stakeholder high-level body that we discussed several months ago, leadership panel, there is a dimension on the role of youth. That's something that we expected to see as youth. I want to share with you, it was part of the points of action that we elaborated on the working group on inclusive intergovernance and ecosystem about our concern that there is any mention of youth, not even the UN youth envoy, which would have been very relevant because as as you know, on the description of this leadership panel, it's mentioned about having the UN Tech Envoy. So that would be to make equal this level. I will wrap up soon. Also, on the selection criteria is not including a quota of youth representatives. And that's something that we express our concern because it is also related to the UN Common Agenda point number 7 on removing barriers to youth participation. We also said at our working group that it's relevant, it would be relevant actually to have youth as a recognized stakeholder, which will allow us to have a better recognition at the IG ecosystem and not the usual tokenism that we are used to see, unfortunately, on these forums. I will just comment very briefly on two more disadvantages that we are seeing, that, for example, on the composition, well, we already mentioned about the criteria, but also that it expresses that, for example, the composition would include representatives with CEO equivalent representation. So in that way, it would affect the representation of small businesses. This would be a key point to address. And finally, that's, well, it's mentioned at the Diplo website that the leadership panel should become more digital on their work, communication, and focus. And also that the outcomes will be shared to the community, not using maybe this system of Chatham House rules, which for us is concerning, because we want to know from which stakeholder is coming, I don't know, a certain policy or comment. And I think I'm okay with my time. You can tell me, Juan, and I pass the floor to someone else. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Eileen. Thank you for those comments about the IGS blogs. Now we move into the follow topic, the Digital Commons model presented by Mubashir Sargana.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mubashir.
Thank you, everyone. So this is Mubashir Sargana. I'll just start with a brief about digital commons, that what actually they are. Digital commons are actually a form of commons involving distribution and community ownership of informational resources and technology as well. Resources can be like typically designed to be used by the public and community, and those are the creators of those assets or resources that the community is using. Examples can be wikis or open source softwares and licenses that the community creates for their own use. Such resources are for the community and people building and their intervention to govern the interaction processes and to deal with the shared resources, how to manage them. Because as I've said, these are freely available and people can use, the community can use. So there are some governing rules as well. I mean, in terms of like as I said, there are some public licenses under which they are governed or they are used. Digital commons are they are actually used various types of forms of licensing, like GNG, General Public License, or the Creative Commons license. These are two examples. If we come to our point that we are going to discuss, that is about models, possible models that can be used for digital commons. And if we just talk about architecture to develop the governance solutions, they can be based on commitment to safeguarding the internet in the common interest of multilateral and multi-stakeholder model that we used in our internet governance paradigm. So the basic idea behind the digital commons model is to ensure the integrity of the internet and the safety and security and stability of technical infrastructure, but also its standards and protocols for essential and the most important sustainable digitalization. And moreover, it can be for a purpose like to safeguard the internet in terms of maybe due to some of its attached negative consequences that we can come across while using internet or while connecting to the internet, because the people throughout the globe connect with them and they access their freely available resources. Moreover, it's also based on the idea of like offering, thinking about our discussion about the tracks of about consultation or constellations of different stakeholders to encourage dialogue about the current and emerging issues related to the resources available online, maybe under some license or just freely available. There are some meetings also planned and done annually or maybe subsequent whenever it's needed. Discuss all these things like how to govern these issues and challenges that we can and how to deal with them. What can related to these models that we can use in digital commons? It's like a widely accepted and well-regarded concept and conceptuality that connects internet governance related issues with the digital stability and sustainable digitalization discourse, and it's obvious that it's important for both technology and also governance. While combining multilateral and multi-stakeholder rights ensures that both normative approaches that safeguard the internet in the common of international laws and internet governance, these both aspects are at the same pace. And if we just sum up all these things, like all these approaches that we have been talking about, there are soft laws and there are some policies that need to be developed. If we talk about the only essence of internet governance forum, then we should come up with common laws and policies that can be used across the world. These models are repositories of norms and governance issues to guide all the stakeholders that are involved and their respective responsibilities, how they are going to play their role and contribute in this whole process. Thank you so much. That's all from my side.
Salam Mubashir. Next is Meri Baghdasaryan. She's going to present the co-governance model. Please, Meri, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you, everyone. I will briefly recap the main features of the proposed distributed co-governance architecture. Co-governance relies on the horizontal model for digital cooperation, which is mostly used by such policy-making bodies as IEEE, IETF, ICANN, and others. And one of the main features of this architecture is that it separates the formation of norms from their implementation and their enforcement. But at the same time, co-governance networks do not operate as governing authority, and they don't have any enforcement powers, but they will simply follow a process that will provide the governing agencies with some blueprint or framework for designing their policies, regulations, or laws later. So co-governance consists of three functional elements. So the first one is the digital cooperation networks, which would be this issue-specific horizontal collaboration platform consisting of groups that will involve stakeholders from all interest groups. Participation in this network should be open to all stakeholder groups, as I mentioned, and special efforts should be made to include and support representation from developing countries and traditionally marginalized groups. And the function of these groups would entail developing shared understandings, goals for a specific digital issue, strengthening cooperation, designing, updating digital norms, providing norm implementation roadmaps, and developing capacity to adopt policies and norms later. The second functional element is named network support platform. So as the name suggests, these platforms are only about supporting the processes by the digital cooperation networks. These do not have any agency to interfere into the work product or composition of the self-governed and stakeholder-initiated digital cooperation processes. They simply support the process to identify any emerging issues, secure commitment of relevant stakeholders, provide necessary resources, and promote the outcomes. And the last one is network of networks. And as the name suggests, it is the one that does not have any top-down form of administration. It is simply there to loosely coordinate the activities of other decentralized co-governance networks, and the decisions are not binding. The network of network consists of a support function, which is supposed to organize an annual forum, a research cooperative, and norm exchange, and a volunteer peer coordination network, which would bring issues to the attention of the annual forum and follow up with its recommendations by promoting actions from specific stakeholder groups to form digital cooperation networks. And going back to my point that I made in the beginning, only when norms are available, the governing authorities may choose to establish enforcement and implementation mechanisms. And in the context of co-governance, when we talk about norm design, we mean identifying digital governance issues, forming cooperation networks, and supporting networks to digital cooperation platforms. Then after the norms are already available, we move to implementation, and this entails developing norm design and providing a norm exchange to connect communities and offering implementation incentives. And finally, norm enforcement is about developing norms into laws or regulations and adjusting, resolving any conflicts there, as well as establishing clear ground for digital technologies. So in other words, co-governance is a more horizontal architecture for governance, and one of its main goals is to provide more equal footing for the stakeholder groups that were not traditionally very engaged in the IGF structures. It is about creating a process for formulating digital norms and providing framework for further implementation and enforcement. I think I'll stop here to allow more time for our discussion, and I look forward to it. Over to you, Juan.
Thank you very much, Meri. Now we going with Mudavanhu. He will give us some insights about the cooperation between different regional perspectives regarding digital cooperation.
Thank you so much for allowing me this time. If you could just help me with the slides. Thank you. So actually, I would like to, on the previous note, I would just like to start maybe by asking us all a question, and we can keep it as rhetoric for the time being. But the question is, should the power to shape the internet be in the hands of everyone? And I'd like to reflect on in June 2020, the UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, he talked on effective digital cooperation. And in the paper that was eventually reported as the roadmap to digital cooperation, he said that what is instrumental in achieving the future we want and the ambitious goals of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is, it's that something that any country or any company or any institution can achieve alone. So I think therein lies the answer that we seek. It's a cooperation, a collaborative effort that we should all be joining in. And I would like to share a few more in terms of how the youth can be more engaged at a regional level into these kind of conversations. But the first thing, I guess, to put out there is something that we already know. The ITU just recently released its facts and figures for 2021. And it was shocking to see that the youth, that is from ages 15 to 24, in 2020, used 71% of the internet, right? So if we are the biggest stakeholder, why is it that we aren't as involved, as engaged when it comes to those issues around internet and the governance of it? So that digital cooperation aspect of it, we should be as visible as we are as users. And you then find three things that I believe should be included in the conversation and considerations around developing regional initiatives around digital cooperation. And I find inspiration from the recently released, I think it's 2 days old, by Youth and Policymakers paper on digital inclusion. And they highlighted access to opportunities. So this is the creation of sustainable structures for remote participation, capacity building, training, fellowships, and mentorship opportunities for the youth, so that you can allow them to engage with the issues at hand. And it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop at education. It also includes defining policies that lay out how to ensure young people can actually attend the various fora and various meetings for them to be engaged and for them to be a part of these kind of discussions. So that goes to a more practical element. How can we actually get them to these platforms? And the second one was around expansion, or at least sustainable expansion of internet infrastructure. And that's simply saying the internet infrastructure needs to be expanded, and emphasis should be put on community networks to facilitate the inclusion. And the last one was around diversity. We are a diverse group as the youth, between ages, between race, between gender, cultures. There are so many things that differentiate us, and these should be incorporated in with regards to how best we can make sure there's more involvement at the regional level around these issues. So those are things to consider. And what I will leave you with above and beyond that is actually, if you are a youth right now, if you fall under the categories of a youth, or if you think you do, if you're young at heart, what can you actually do right now? Where can you go? Which initiatives are out there for you? And we've broken them down from as advertised to regional initiatives, and some are IGF, some are outside IGF. But the point is really to get us going, get us doing something. And I'll just start by the Africa section. And we have your Youth IGF Africa, which is an open platform for youth facilitated by the African IGF. And you find youth from many African countries there that are participating, from Chad, Sudan, Morocco, Nigeria, South Africa, Zimbabwe, from where I'm from. And there's also the African School of IG, AFRISIG, and which is about a 5-day week, a 5-day course, if I can put it that way. But it's an annual meeting, essentially, that is born of a partnership between the AU, that is the African Union Commission, and the Association for Progressive Communications. And really what they do is they facilitate leadership building processes and capacity building opportunities for us to be able to be engaging in issues around the digital platforms and the digital use, rather the digital economy that we find ourselves in. There is, in the Americas and Caribbean, we have the Youth SIG, or the Youth Observatory, again, a youth-led organization there, which is doing incredible work, and that's created, it was created as a result of Latin American youth engagement, and it's organized by ISOC, which I'm coming to you as an ambassador of, and the Brazilian Internet Steering Committee. So a bunch of things that they're doing there, including editing and launching books written by young authors around said issues and promoting digital education and the likes. There's also the Youth Latin American and Caribbean IGF, which you can be involved with. And it has been going on since 2016, I believe. And this initiative is independently organized. So it's organized by a committee composed of members that fit the definition of youth by the IGF, and includes other stakeholders as well. But it gives that regional balance, it gives that regional perspectives to what is going on and what are the issues that we're supposed to be tackling. And it also gives that regional perspective also, which is important when tackling these issues and getting youth engaged. And we have the Asia Pacific. In the Asia Pacific, we have the Asia Pacific Regional IGF, and that provides a unique discussion platform for youth from different backgrounds, as you would imagine. And it provides, professional interest, and organizers set up this 3 to 4 day camp, whereby more on youth engagement, more on education, digital education rather, and the skill sets that you need to be able to participate fully, meaningfully in this movement can be found there. And in Europe, we have the European Dialogue on Internet Governance, or EuroDig, and essentially there they have the Youth Dig events, which foster peer learning and networking among the youths that reside in Europe, of course, and discuss and exchange views with experienced policy practitioners. So there already is that multi-stakeholder aspect to things, and different groups speaking to different groups, although from a youth perspective, and also gaining an experience from those that are experts or are in the fields that exist already. So with that, there's the sub-regional, depending on where you are, there's the Southeastern European Dialogue on Internet Governance. And essentially, it's basically making it more accessible to a particular sub-region, but it's doing the same thing around as EuroDig. So those are just a few of the initiatives that are out there. And I do encourage us all to get engaged. The internet is ours. We are the biggest stakeholders. So I expect all of us to be more encouraged and to actually take this on.
Okay, thank you very much, Ethan. Now we open this space here to questions for any or speakers. And also, who would like to take the floor can do it.
To see the initiatives that you have underway. But it seems to me that there is something much, my name is Janice Richardson from Onsite and from the Dynamic Coalition for Internet Standards, Safety and Security. I've been researching over the past 6 months with industry to really understand what they need when young people come to work there. And so it seems to me that you are missing a very important link. Is the education that you're reaching to get, is the education that you want really the education that industry needs to continue to make the internet secure and safe? My research so far shows me that there is a huge gap. And I think that this is an area where young people should be working together to detect those gaps and to push education really to give them the skills or to help them develop the skills that are so necessary if they're really going to have a loud voice in shaping internet.
Thank you very much for your comment. If anyone want to follow, please can do it, any one of the speakers.
Hello, Mubashir here. Can you hear me clearly?
We can hear you clear, not so much clear as, but better than before.
Okay, I'll speak a bit louder. I hope it's okay now. It's fine. Okay, I totally agree with the comments that has been shared about the capacity building, because it's most important for the youth if we are interested for them to come forward or to lead activities that some of them that we are discussing right now. National and regional initiatives like internet governance for our schools of internet governance, they are addressing this challenge to a great extent, but the international fora like IGF itself is a great platform for this purpose. If we focus more on the capacity building of youth through some programs that we can offer through IGF, that will help this thing a lot in terms of capacity building. Thank you.
Thank you. If anyone else want to make a question here or online, is more than welcome. Fred, we have a question online?
Not yet. We don't have anyone who have raised their hand so far.
Eileen, do you want to make some comment? I think, I don't know, I saw that you appear on the screen.
Yes, thank you very much, Juan. I want to thank for your comment on the dynamic coalitions. And I also agree with you that it's very important to bring these capacity building tools to youth to participate, because when we are saying to participate, it's a necessary step to get there first, to bring the tools to young people. So for us, well, many of us have been, for example, involved in Internet Society Youth Ambassadors program. So for us, it has been our first step into the ecosystem. Well, it's also other way to engage, but be truly engaged in the ecosystem. It's essential to have the support from all the other stakeholders. And I think we have some raised hands.
Nicolas can take the floor.
Well, Nicolas Fiumarelli for the recording. Well, from all the perspective of the models, I am very happy to see that, well, this idea of going from from the local perspectives or national perspectives to the regional, and then from the regional to the global, I found some parts of each of one of the models that has this idea behind. And my question or my suggestion could be that need to be like the general thing that, or at least the youth initiatives usually wants this process to be really hardened, because we have not seen this in the past. For example, in the regional IGFs, sometimes it doesn't have in account, like for example, what the outcomes were from the national IGFs, and then the same happening in the global IGF. So we have some governance ideas of the regions, or what are the interests of each of the regions, or comments or opinions or statements from different stakeholders. But at the end, maybe sometimes there is no like an ordered process to join all these comments or statements per stakeholder, to have a sense of what are the necessities or the problems or challenges of each of the regions, and then go into the global. So I think that we need to find maybe a mixture of these models to trying to reach that idea, to maintain this bottom-up process the most as possible. That is, thank you.
Yes, I think you can go ahead, then we pass to other speakers.
Thank you. I'm Kosi. I'm a senior and come from Benin. When we are talking about IGF and youth, and we are talking about the stakeholders, youth are not possible to be for government, for civil society and technical community in the same time. Every time youth are coming from something like end users, the civil society, we can say. When we have them on the table to discuss on their priority, is it to learn how is internet, how they can use internet for themselves, or just know the process? Because we have 3 stakeholders in the table, this do that, another one do that, the third one do that. Is it only the information they need, or they're supposed to ask for information we can use for themselves? What is the challenge exactly?
Okay, if any other speaker want to take the word here. Oh, we have another question here in the floor.
Oh, no.
Or comment.
You can go ahead and get responses, and then I'll just wait with my question for another moment.
All right. So I guess that leaves me to it. I would like to just firstly answer just at least my opinion from the previous question, and I believe youth have much more to offer than just an end user experience. I think we are at the forefront of the internet, which means its impact and its reach are things that we are so close to and come naturally to us. I mean, if you're talking about shutdowns and the effect of shutdowns on new businesses that we are blooming out of the internet age, it's mostly the youth that would be affected by those things. If you're talking about the different nuances to the internet, it's again youth who are at the base of the impact of it. So I believe there's much more that we can offer, besides how better we want it used, but actually how better it can be developed. So there's those elements, but I also wanted to touch on quickly the idea around education, and further from it is there's still 2.9 billion people who are offline. 96% of those are in developing countries. And the reason why I feel so strongly to speak on regional initiatives is even the conversations are different. So if we're speaking about education and 96% of a particular group, say maybe in Africa, are still struggling to even have broadband internet that allows them to come to forums like these, or at least that gives them that awareness and level of education to be able to use particular aspects of the internet. Then there are different conversations happening across the globe. And again, my emphasis is that's where regional initiatives should come through and come strongly, because the conversations are different. How to educate the youth in the South America is different from how to educate youth even in North America, at least what their needs are. So I really think that there needs to be a focus on the conversation, the initiatives, and the priorities that regions are facing and how they can be tackled. So that's my contribution.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Demetria Lee, and I work at the German Informatics Society that put on the Youth Times Policymakers program that was mentioned earlier. And our sort of international group of about 45 participants published policy papers, again mentioned in the session, at yigf.de this week, at the beginning of this week. And I guess my question is primarily directed to you, Ethan. You know, we worked with such an international group of young people, and I'm curious to know how we could have maybe done a better job of making these regional differences a little bit clearer, even within this very global group of young people.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I think there are two things for me. I really do believe in silos, or rather in the parallel workings of initiatives, right? So if you're talking about regional initiatives and the likes, them working as individual regions and coming up with solutions, coming up with the questions that they're facing and the solutions, right? And then bringing those to a global conversation, I think brings a much clearer perspective and a much clearer idea of how we can actually move forward. Because what we then find is conversation shifting or an urge to just get to a global picture, whereby we can point to X, Y, and Z and say, okay, this is our global, our harmonized even term, approach to a particular issue. Whereas I'm saying, I think we need a little more focus on the grassroots level. If we can spend a little more time on really just my neighbor and my neighbor's neighbor, and making sure that we completely understand their situations, their concerns, and then bring that up. I feel like the bottom-up process is moving too quickly, if I can put it that way. So more emphasis, I think, needs to be on the ground root level issues and how we can tackle them before we even get to a global IGF or a global platform or global papers. So that's what I would say. But I think beyond that, there's a saying that I used to love, which says it's better to build boys than to repair men. And it really is the idea of how do we make sure, if we are thinking about, like I said, I enjoyed your paper. If I'm thinking about what are the issues and what are the potential solutions, I think at the back of my mind should always be the idea of how do I make sure that the 5-year-old in Soweto somewhere, or in Kenya somewhere, whatever the issue may be, can be equipped to use the internet meaningfully. And as long as at the back end of that, it is that 5-year-old boy and not necessarily me, maybe you and I think we can get to the answer quicker and more effectively.
Okay, thank you, Ethan. If we have more questions, please do it now, because we are getting close to the hour. I see that 2 people raised their hand on the chat, so if you want to speak.
Eileen can go first.
Thanks, everyone. I will comment very quickly because I know we are a bit short of time. So, for example, it was mentioned the question about the education part. There's something that we always discuss at the youth governance that I'm part of, is that generally it was like I think the very first topic that emerged and was part of the conversation, but we also want to emphasize that under the youth representation and the youth people, how to say it, we are very interested in all sorts of topics, not only about youth participation or education. So that's something that we should keep in consideration. That's why it's also important that today, for example, we are discussing about digital cooperation, and in a while we will be discussing about cybersecurity. Sorry. So that's also a way to see that we are not only focusing on one aspect of internet or just one stakeholder. Going back to the comment on having youth as a stakeholder, we thought that having this new actor in sort of way, it would also give us a better recognition. That's why I was saying better recognition, also a true voice to speak up, because otherwise we usually fall on the discussion that we are end users or part of the technical community, and even, for example, within the technical community, they have different discussions. So that's something that we should keep into consideration, that it's open the discussion within each stakeholder. I want to thank Demetria for mentioning about the policy papers. I think this is something very useful for us also to bring our messages there. Yeah, I will stop speaking now and giving the floor to Meri.
Thanks, Eileen. I mainly agree with most of the comments made by my colleagues already, but just my 2 cents before we conclude. So I remember when I joined this community like 5-6 years ago, we're having the same discussion. Is youth a separate stakeholder or is it part of other stakeholder groups? So there is no need to have a specific youth stakeholder group. So my reflection for the last 5-6 years is that there is a need to have a separate stakeholder group, because this is not about, it's about having a seat at the table, as Eileen mentioned. Otherwise, my reflection is that the youth just gets swallowed by other stakeholder groups, and we are everywhere. That is true. We are part of all stakeholder groups, but we present a specific perspective, and that needs a separate seat at the table. Going back to the question on education, yes, I would say there are gaps. Nothing is perfect in this world, including education. But again, this is about having a seat at the table. So having a specific perspective from youth, regardless of how prepared they are, is important in itself. And finally, on regional versus global tensions, I would say that everything on global level needs to make sense on the local level, which is the most important and also most challenging thing that we deal with on daily basis on all or across different issues. So definitely agree with Ethan that it is, and also with Nicolas, that we need to invest in more grassroots initiatives, but also think how this all will make sense on a global level. Because if we go on a very global abstract level and this doesn't make sense on the local level, I don't think we are moving forward with anything. So important to balance what we are doing on all levels, and cooperation and synergies is what we should strive for. Thank you. Over to you, Juan.
Okay, thank you very much for this insightful conversation about cooperation and how you should be involved in the distinct conversations in internet governance, especially as a stakeholder. So, as we don't have so much time, if anyone want to give a small conclusion about it, can do it now. If it doesn't, well, we finish. Okay. I think it's Eileen want to make a last statement.
Okay. Well, I just comment very quickly because I don't want to miss the opportunity that, for example, myself and other colleagues like Nicolas Fiumarelli, who is with you on site. We organized last year, for example, the With Internet in cooperation with Missions Publiques, global dialogues with citizens, and in part of those dialogues we included citizens into the discussion of digital cooperation and many other topics. So I think it is important to remark that this topic shouldn't be only closed to just a circle of people. It is important that everyone is equally participating and have their voices heard. So yes, I will stop my intervention here, and thank you very much, Juan, and everyone.
Okay, with this comment, we finish this panel, and thank you very much to everyone here on site and everyone online.
Right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.